Hello, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about Batch 18. I'm going to go over the bots in them, what I think about them, what I think about the batch as a whole, whether I recommend going for it or not, all the fun stuff. So we'll start with the bots in the batch. So they're there. We got Orion Pax, Vector Prime, Wing Saber, Jetfire Skystriker, and Snapdragon. So last week I went over some predictions. So I got the three endurance bots right, but that's not too crazy. If you pay attention to how they release 5-star batches, there's always at least two. The trend lately has been three, so that's not really anything crazy. And then in the other two, I predicted at least one combiner piece. I think Streetwise, Mirage, and Trailbreaker were my guesses, because all those Autobot combiners are those pieces away from their combiner. But they did a bit of a curveball. There are no combiner pieces. That was a little surprising to me. So instead, we've got Jetfire Skystriker and Snapdragon. So I'll show some gameplay in a second, real quick. Just gonna go through the bots, what they do. Um, so Ryan Pax, he's a ranged special. He's a support bot. So he fires a weapon that deals 2,393 damage to the target. Upon hit, the weapon splits into 4 more weapons, so 5 total, targeting nearby defenses or enemy bots. Each weapon places a pulse on its target for 10.5 seconds. Um, that heals allies in a range for 40% of the target's DPS per second. Allies can be healed by multiple pulses at once. Destroying enemies with pulses on them will grant nearby allies plus 20% lifesteal for 10.5 seconds. If you look at stats, I haven't majored. If you want to just take a quick look, pretty average, I'd say. A little high on the DPS, which is good. So Vector Prime, he's basically an outpost popper, very similar to Rook, but instead of a warrior, he's a special. Um, so open a portal, unleashing 3 Vector Prime Hollows for 50% of your health and DPS. They jump between buildings up to 3 times, inflicting 240 acid damage per second for 6 seconds, for a total of 1,440. Hollows explode upon expiry or death, dealing 4 times your DPS in an area. Enemies in range of the portal suffer the cryo effect, reducing attack and move speed by negative 40%. Um, so again, want to take a quick look at his base stats. I haven't majored. I have basically everybody majored. Um, so 50% of your health and DPS. I'm pretty sure when they say that it's before boosts. So each holo at max level will have about 12,000 health, so about 36,000 worth of health per use, and then they'll have about 330 DPS, and then when they explode for 4 times that, well, the calculator, 330 times 4, so it's 1320, and then obviously 3 hollows times 3, so that's how much total explosion damage they do. Um, it sells Vector Prime. Then Wing Saber. So he's a combo bot. He's not like a jet or anything. So enter stealth for 6 seconds, dropping 8 free fall bombs along the way, each dealing 669 damage, normal damage, and applying the glass gas effect, causing them to take plus 40% DPS and ability damage for 8 seconds. Upon reaching the target, drop a final payload that deals 4,404 normal damage and removes all shields. So again, we'll take a quick look at his base stats. I think they're about average for a air class bot. His G1 core gives him 20% health, so that's pretty nice. So that's Wind Saber. And then we got Jafar Skystriker. So I mentioned Wing Saber is an aerial class but not a jet. Jetfire Skystriker is. He's just a pure jet, just like Jetfire, SG Jetfire, Firefly. I think those are the main ones. So fire 5 powerful rockets at a target, each dealing 1,293 normal damage for a total of 6,466. You also fire 20 missiles, each dealing 431 normal damage in an area. So 431 times 20 is 8,620. So basically 8,600 plus the original basically 6,400. That's almost exactly 15,000. And then actually that is 15,000, and then plus a little bit less, sorry, more that I 15,000 damage. It is 15,000 damage total. um, and then while flying, you gain stealth to enemies, so that's nice, I guess. Um, One thing though, I'm fairly certain he has the most DPS in the game now. So again, these are the major stats, but if you look at the base damage, he does 987.7. I believe before him, the highest was SG Jetfire, and he did 945. So Skystriker has about 40 more DPS than that. So that's pretty cool. Um, I think his health is about average for Jet as well. Maybe a little bit on the low side, but that's okay. So yeah, that's Jetfire Skystriker. And then lastly, we have Snapdragon. He's a triple changer. So we got two abilities. The first one, the Fireball, set foes on fire in a straight line, dealing 168 fire damage per second for 10 seconds for a total of 1,682. The Fireball explodes when hitting the final target, dealing half of the fire damage. So that would be 84. To surrounding foes for over 10 seconds. Use Mach 3. Flying over burning targets causes them to explode, dealing 2,763 fire damage in a small area. And then his Mach 3 ability, rush into combat, gaining stealth and slowing enemies by 50% for 15 seconds. Max stacks of 2. So unleash a giant shockwave when you hit the final target, slowing down surrounding enemies by 25%. And then use the Fireball. Enemies slowed by the Mach 3 ability take 505 damage per second for 10 seconds, so for a total of 5,046. And he deals 2 times damage on 2 stacked targets. So if you use the Mach 3 twice and then follow it with the Fireball, it'll do like 10,000 damage instead of 5,000. So yeah, his deal with the stats, they're pretty average, I think. Nothing too crazy. So yeah, let's take a look at them. Alright, real quick before I show gameplay, I just want to point out that they're still in testing. So if I show someone that does really high damage, that might get tuned down a little bit. If I show someone that does really low damage, that can get tuned up a little bit. So I don't see any big changes coming, but some small tweaks like damage or health or whatever, that can still change a little bit. Just keep that in mind. So start with the Ryan Pax. He's a support bot. I figured it would be best not to show him going in on a base by himself because he would just die. So the way I recommend using him, I think he's great for openings. If you can get all 5 of his towers close to each other, that helps because one by itself won't really notice. Like let's round up to 400. Each one will do about 140%, so 160 health per second. So you're not gonna notice that much, but when you got 5 of them, I think that's like 800, 160 times 5. Yeah, it's like 800 per second. That's not bad. I think that's almost like a Minerva tower, and he's much cheaper than that. You can't see. He's 2+3. Sorry, 3+2. Um, so an old school. I won't go through the whole battle. The old school style squad. No one has cores or anything. But again, I think he's best on the opening. So if we get the warriors in there, and then you can actually use it twice. So you can see there. These are sometimes they do bounce to weird spots. So these three, they're not going to be helpful to us. Um, but again, you can use it twice. So if you keep it close like this, you can see now there's a bunch of green circles here. Those are all healing us. And then when we destroy the buildings, they'll give us lifesteal, so the bots will start healing themselves. So it's pretty cool. Um, Again, I don't, as a support bot, I don't think he's gonna be the top dog or anything. I think that's Trax probably. Um, but as an event bot, if you pull him, I think he's fun. I think he's unique. He's definitely usable. I think a lot of people are lower on him, or I'm at least higher on them than most people. A lot of people think he's just terrible. I think if he's the proclaimed dud of the batch, I think that's a pretty good dud. Um, you just gotta keep in mind he's a support bot. Some people say that he's a special and expect him to do damage, which isn't what he does. um, so once you learn to use him as a support bot, I think he's pretty fun. So next up, we got Vector Prime. I mentioned he's directly comparable to Rook. So if you've seen this layout on my war replays, you know I like to open with Rook. So I just want to show you can do the same thing with Vector Prime. 2, 3, opens a portal. Then there's a hose will start hopping out. You can see these debuff effects, the black arrows. That's the cryo, and then acid you can see there. So that is the one thing that Vector has over Rook. He applies both cryo and acid. So you can see he still popped the whole area, just like Rook can. But for me personally, when I have a warrior and I want them to tank health, that's all I want them to do. I don't care about your damage. I just want you to tank as much health as possible. I'll have other bots that can do other jobs. Similarly, with Rook, yes, the acid and cryo are nice from Vector, but that's not why I'm using them. If I'm using his hollows to pop outposts. And I think personally I still prefer Rook because he's an outpost popper. That's all I will need him to do. Just pop the outposts. Rook does that. His hologram's still pretty good. He has way more health, but it's basically he's the special class version of Rook. So let's say you're really happy with your warriors, you don't want to touch them, but you want to get a outpost popper in, Vector could work. Personally, in events, I like to use at least one outpost popper on each squad. So again, for an event squad, I think he'd be great. I've seen people using him at like the primary card mode. He's definitely usable. He's a good bot. Just personally, I prefer Rook. I don't think Vector's gonna outperform him. Alright, so next up we have Wing Saber. I mentioned that he's a combo bot. There's a few different ways you can use him. So I have his G1 core on. It does not increase his ability damage. So mine, you can see there he's a major. So 4,400 damage times 20%, so times 1.2. So he can one-shot build bots and spider mines. I think that's it. And then you can see because it's G1 core, he destroyed the build bot and the fire spread to nearby buildings. It's not crazy damage. It's like you see 221 per second, but it's something. But if you want to use him on higher health building, like Shock Tower, you can see he gets it low. We have the primaling and hard mode effects on, so it won't destroy it. But if you want to use him with smoke screen, you, that'll destroy it. And then he can also do that with the shield gen, so he won't destroy it by himself. Actually, that's he's a little inconsistent with his damage because of he just drops 8 free fall bombs. So sometimes it's a little inconsistent, but I promise he cannot one shot the shield gen, no matter how close. But he can always get it below 50%. So that if you want to use smoke screen, you can execute it. So that's a possible combination. Smoke screen is very popular, especially in finally hard mode. So Wing Saber plus smoke screen, that's a good combo for the shield gen. Or if you wanna, so someone like Air Raid who needs someone else to activate it, you can also use them in that way. So this is probably the best way I've seen him use in primary hard mode. Um, so it's best on cheap or lower health buildings like a build bot, and then get Wing Saber in there. He can one shot it, take out the whole thing. Um, so his G1 core doesn't increase his ability damage. So if you put an enhanced ordnance on him instead, you lose the fire, but honestly that's okay. And then I think so that brings him up to 5571. So I think a corporal, so the first rank, that should be enough to get him over the 5800 mark. And then also, let's see how much damage he does as a major. Primary hard mode. So, see, even with an enhanced ordnance, he can't take out the shield gen by himself. But he can get it pretty low, so then you can take it out with smoke screen. And then if you want to use him with air raid, you don't need a cheaper building like a build bot. You can use them on anything like a cannon. There you go. So those are the two best ways I have found to use them. On a high health building like a shield gen, and then finish off with smoke screen, or you can use him with air raid, and then use him to deal the damage. Either works. All right. So next we've got Jetfire Skystriker. He is very strong. I was originally skeptical about him because if you look at his 4-star before his ability 11, his damage is a little bit underwhelming compared to the rest. However, with his 5-star and ability 11, he can basically outperform SG Jetfire in almost every way. So mine is a major, so he's designed for primary hard mode, high level. And we've got the primary hard mode effects on. But you can see this is Sky Striker and then SG Jetfire. So he has slightly more range. And again, this is major, so I don't think he can do this at Captain or below. Maybe Captain. Definitely not Sergeant. But he can one shot the shield gen. And he's only 4+2 instead of 5+4 like SG Jetfire. So I'm actually interested in how they're going to balance him. Reminder that, like I said, these can change, but it's hard because you can't balance around the ranks because they're so ridiculously expensive. Like, you can't. It's gonna be interesting because a major Sky Striker, he can one shot the shield gen for 4+2. That's kind of crazy. But I'm pretty sure you need a major, maybe captain, but like I'm very interested in how they're gonna balance them because they've kind of laid the precedent you can't balance around that because they're so expensive. But at the moment, so like I said, he's 4+2, unlike SG Jetfire, and he can one-shot everything. I don't think he can get the shield or the MDS while protected by a shield gen. Yeah, no. However, if you go for the shield gen first, he can take that out, and then he can take out a shield gen. There we go. So again, he's 4+2, so he's the same price as normal Jetfire, and he has more range and more damage. And I went over his DPS. He has the highest DPS in the game. If we look at his health, it's a bit lower. You can see SG Jetfire is 32.6. He's like 9,000 less than that almost. It's more than normal Jetfire. So it's about average, a little on the low side, I'd say. These are all majors, so you can kind of see. Yeah, I just say he's probably the strongest in the batch. If I'll touch on him and Jets a little at the end, but if you're a fan of SG Jetfire, I think you'll be a fan of Jetfire Sky Striker. And some people think there are too many jets. The pure jets are I referred as Wing Saber. He's an air class, not a jet. Jets are the bots who you use them, you want to take out a building. So that would be SG Jetfire, Sky Striker, Jetfire, Firefly, and Silverbolt. Their only objective is to use their ability, take out a building. No more, no less. So yeah, I'll touch on jets at the end. So we'll just move on. So lastly, we've got Snapdragon. So his whole purpose to me seems to basically be he's for backdoors. So I know there's a few players, or not a few. There's quite a few players, but they love backdoors. If you're not familiar, basically you get bots like Cup, Springer, now Snapdragon. His 4-star is usable too, but just now obviously stronger 5-star version. And you basically get them to the back, and then you don't need to worry about the base. So it doesn't work on every base. That's kind of the problem with it. You see his range on his Mach 3 ability. He can get all the way to the back. So from that stance, he's good. However, so if we want to do damage, we're going to use his Fireball first, and then follow up with Mach 3. So you see the explosions. However, unfortunately, it's not much. He won't, yeah, and then with healing, doesn't even come close to taking out. He can go to an area, and he has stealth. So you could use him for sack, maybe. To me, he just doesn't impress me. I know there's a small percent of players who just who love him. The problem with triple changes really is if you're using his abilities together. If you can think of a way to use like his Mach 3 with a different bot, and then maybe his Fireball with an Acid bot, like that's one thing. But if you want to use them together, it's 4+2 and 3+1. So really, his ability, you saw how much he did. It was like not much, and it costs basically 7+3. So he outranges someone like Leo. But personally, I'd just rather use someone like Leo. Like I just don't. Yeah, to me, Snapdragon doesn't impress me. I said that many people will probably consider Orion Pax the dud of the batch. Personally, I think it's Snapdragon. Um, and I will maybe I'm just not using him right. I do apologize if that's the case. Just personally, he's never impressed me. He still doesn't. Um, yeah, like unless you're a backdoor user, I just don't really see how he outperformed other bots, which is kind of the theme with this batch in a way. So that's all the bots. And now, so I talk about Orion Pax. He's a support bot, but I don't think he's the best or even really that close. He's good. If you pull him, he's usable in offense. There's no reason to like leave him on level 1. He's not useless. No matter what level of the game you're at. Like, he has a use. He's not useless. That's great. That's more than you can say about some other batches. But I just don't think he outperforms someone like Trax or Red Alert or Trailbreaker or any others. Not any other, but those are probably the top 3 support bots. I just don't think he's better than them. But again, still usable. Vector Prime, as an outpost popper, I just don't think he outperforms Rook. And it's not completely fair because they're different classes, but I just I use Rook. I just don't know why I need Vector Prime instead of Rook. But again, in events, he's very usable. He's very good. If you pull him, you can use him. And again, that's more than you say about some other bots and other badges, so that's good. Wing Saber, I I'm a big fan of him. He's fun. He's pretty unique. The only thing is, if you're using old style squad with air raid and smokescreen, I mentioned how you can use them with both of them. That's very helpful. The only thing is that so can other jets. So let's say I want to use Jetfire instead of Wing Saber. If I want to use him with smokescreen and use him first and then follow with smokescreen, Jetfire can do that too. If you want to use Jetfire in the shield gen and then finish it off with smokescreen, he can do that too. Or if you want to use him with air raid and you want to use air raid first and then follow with Wing Saber, you can do the same thing with someone like Jetfire. And so if you look at the prices of his ability, the first use is obviously cheaper. This, I think, the second one cancels that out, and then so yeah, so either him or Jetfire would be 10 points for the first 2 uses, and then after that, Wing Saber is more expensive. So again, he's good, he's usable. If you pull him, you don't need to leave him at level 1. He's good at whatever level of the game you're at. I just, if you have someone like Jetfire, I just don't know why you need someone like Wing Saber. And then we have Jetfire Sky Striker. To me, at his current state, which again might change, it might not. I do not know. I'm not being hush hush about it. I do not know. But to me, he's the most irreplaceable one here. He basically, like I mentioned, he basically outperforms at least at major and maybe captain. He outperforms SG Jetfire in almost every way. So that's very strong. However, if you noticed, if you watch my war videos, I don't use SG Jetfire. Oh, that's not my war squad. I don't use SG Jetfire or really any jet. I think they're just kind of outdated. It would be nice if Jetfire Sky Striker, if he can kind of set the standard on what they can be again. But I wouldn't be shocked if he gets tuned down a little bit. So it's like, for someone like me, if I wanted to destroy outposts or not build bots, I just use have smokescreen. So then if you're not taking out build bots with the jet, the other option is high health buildings. So if you want to max him and get him to captain and hope they don't tune him down later, then you can use him on the shield gen. But I think he's probably the best jet. The only problem is, again, I don't use jets because they're not as good anymore. So just like the other three, he's good. He's usable. He's probably the best jet. He outperforms them, but I don't need him. I don't. I have smokescreen and combos that can do what they can do. And then last we have Snapdragon, which to me he's the worst in the batch. He doesn't impress me. I know there's a small percent of players who would die for him. So I apologize if I'm not showing him how to use him right. Yeah, he's just never impressed me, really. If you're a backdoor user, you would probably like him. But for someone like me who mainly just walks, I don't see him. Um, so it's kind of a weird batch because personally, I'm just gonna say I'm not gonna go for this batch. Um, I don't represent most players. I'm aware of that. This isn't my main account. Hang on. So this is my main account. So I know I don't represent most players, but I have almost 85 star bots. I don't need 4-star bots. I am happy with my war squad. I don't need 5-star bots for events or anything. For me personally, someone at a pretty high level, what I'm looking for is someone who can be a new warbot. I don't think any of them are. Someone who would maybe they'd be slightly better in events, but I'm not looking for someone slightly better. I'd need someone who's definitively better. Which I don't think any of them are definitively better that I can't get somewhere else. And the other thing could be a combiner piece, which unfortunately, like if there's a combiner piece for no matter what combiner, I'd probably go for the batch, just like I did with batch 17. But there's no combiner piece, so I don't need anybody from that batch. But it's just weird because like it's just a little weird because like I said, this is a good batch. Everyone here is usable. They're just not the top. If you're going for a warbot, I've seen Vector Prime and Wing Saber and even Snapdragon be used in wars, even on Primary card mode. But I don't think you need them. I don't think they're irreplaceable, if that makes sense. So yeah, just to wrap a bow on it. So yeah, basically, they're all good, usable bots. I don't think there's a straight dud that's unusable here. I think the theme of this badge is really good, but not irreplaceable. That's really, I'm having a hard time getting out of that mindset. And then I wish there was a combiner piece, because without one, I just don't need to go for this batch. Like, you know what I mean? Which kind of sucks because I do like Wing Saber. I think it looks so cool. I think he's unique. I think he's a great bot, but I don't need him. So that's kind of where I'm struggling. So those are my thoughts on batch 18. Shortly after this video comes out, I'm also going to be working on a batch 19 and 20 speculation, as well as maybe the next 5-star combiners. Because I think with Streetwise, Mirage, Trailbreaker not in this batch, and actually we know Trailbreaker is coming this weekend as an event bot, from an event. I think we can kind of see where they're going, so I'll go into more depth about that. That'll just be speculation, just yapping, no facts. Like this video, everything in this video, the bots and then are coming to the bat. That's a fact. So look out for that if you're interested. I think it's always fun to speculate about the next patch. So if you're still here, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. If you keep coming back, a sub would be appreciated, and I'll see you next time.